Hi there, I'm Corey Barger, and this is Bassoon Lessons Online. I believe that anyone can learn to play the bassoon, no matter who you are or where you come from. I put these lessons online for you to help you learn to play with confidence and ease. I hope that you find them helpful. Hit subscribe and share with anyone that you think may benefit. Today's lesson is talking about one of the more important technical elements of playing the bassoon. It involves your left thumb, which is often very busy, and bassoonists have a bit of a stereotype for being really good at thumb wars and Nintendo games, so we've got to keep that up. Of course, you've already noticed how much there is to occupy your left thumb. There are 9 keys on a lot of bassoons. Some people only have 8, but there's a full circle of things that are going to keep your thumb occupied. Your fingering chart may not tell you what to do with these upper right hand ones, so if you don't have any indication of adding them to the fingering on notes around middle C, make sure you go and download the fingering chart that I've linked to in the description. That's going to make a really big difference in how you are able to play higher notes. Older bassoons, like in the 19th century, did not have the ability to play as bouncy as we can now. It's a little bit more difficult to change octave, but with the addition of these keys, which are essentially octave keys, I've got 3 of them, some of you may only have 2, they are going to allow you to pop up and down really easily between the octave around middle C and lower. You will also find them as elements of very high notes, so we'll talk about that at a later lesson. So make sure that you do have a fingering chart that tells you what to do. Otherwise you won't be able to bounce very easily between low notes and mid-range notes. It's a really important element of bassoon technique. So there are 2 schools of thought as to how to use these particular keys, and they're called either flicking or venting. Sometimes these keys are referred to as vent keys, and this makes sense when you use them as part of the fingering because you're just allowing a little vent of air to escape the entire time, and that lets the note resonate at a higher octave. So I'm just going to transform A in the staff to A at the top of the staff. And I can go easily between the 2 by jumping from the whisper key to the A key. And my thumb knows exactly how far apart those keys are. I know exactly how hard to press them, and it is very easy to just make that motion. You want to establish a consistent technique. You want to try to always hit the key in the same place. You don't want to be reaching too far. You don't really need to hit the entire stem of the key with all of your thumb. You can see here that I really just tap it with the edge of my thumb. My thumb is quite short, so it really depends on the size of your hand and what you're comfortable with. But all you need to do is to open the key. And that's just going to be part of the fingering forever. No changes need to be made. I usually recommend this to younger students because it allows you to have a very consistent finger technique. If there are any options in your technique, if sometimes you push one thing and other times you don't as part of the same fingering, it's going to create some confusion in your mind, and it's going to have you have a split second of indecision that's going to actually slow you down in the long run. So try to establish some consistency first. Another way that we use this as bassoonists is by flicking the keys, which is why most of the time you'll hear them referred to as flick keys. I call them flick keys pretty much most of the time, but I use most of them as vents. And this is where you're going to tap the key so that it coincides with the articulation of the note. These keys are here really to make sure that the note speaks up high. If it is closed on the articulation, the note is probably going to speak in the lower octave. Not always, depending upon your embouchure setup. Sometimes the notes will pop out fairly decently without the use of the flick key. So if you haven't been using them and you've been getting along more or less okay, that's why. But what the flick keys do is just help you to establish much more consistency in remaining in the octave, in maintaining that tone up there, having a good, reliable sound. So I would advise incorporating them into your technique if you haven't already. When you are flicking, all you do is tap and release the key. The idea behind this really is that some of the keys will change the pitch of the note. Some of them it's not that noticeable, but on my instrument, for example, A is very different with the flick key and without it. You can hear that it's quite a bit higher with the flick key on. So if I'm playing a longer note, I'm going to tap and release the A like this. If you don't hit the key at the same time that your tongue hits the reed, then you're going to have a crack, and we want to make sure that cracks are avoided. So whether you're using the tap and release technique or the vent technique, make sure that your thumb is always busy when you're playing the bassoon. When you're practicing your scales, this is a great time to make sure that your thumb is doing what it's supposed to. I usually tell my students that there are only 2 notes on the entire instrument where your thumb is not occupied. So make sure that it is doing its job. Don't let it just be floating around without anything to do, because that's going to give you just a moment of indecision with your technique. Anything that's inconsistent is going to slow you down. So if you want to be able to play quickly and reliably, you've got to make sure that your fingerings are really solid and consistent. So hit subscribe if you haven't already, and leave a comment. Let me know what your experience has been like with your thumb. Is your thumb really busy? Are there times where your thumb is a little bit jumpy and indecisive? We can try to work on that. Learning to play the bassoon is not the easiest thing, but with consistency and good guidance, anybody can learn to do it.